I think there's a lot of people out there who want to vend for the first time or want to try it or want to dip their toes into it. So now that you've done it a few times, I've done it a few times, I want to put together a list between the two of us on tips that we would give people who want to first start out and get vending. The first one I have is stock up on snacks and drinks and keep yourself hydrated, because a lot of times, especially at small events, there may not be like a concession. They're not going to have a company coming in like cater the event or anything. You're not going to have food or water available to you. Definitely make sure you bring that stuff, because I think the first one that I went to, I didn't bring anything and I was dying. I was dying because it was like a 9-hour show or 8-hour show and I was there by myself, and it was like I didn't bring anything. I don't know why, but I got caught with literally nothing and I was dying by the end of it.
Food is critical. Coffee, a little bit of protein, like jerky, whatever, and then the adrenaline of like selling. Like I agree. You bring food and water. I didn't have a problem because I just wasn't hungry.
You almost
The first
forget
time,
about it,
you
and
just
then it's all
forget
of a
about it.
sudden like,
You'll
oh
crash,
crap, I
bro.
haven't eaten for like 7 hours.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
but DoorDash is your friend. Like we DoorDash like some sandwiches or whatever, had them delivered. They were cool. They brought them into the lobby. I picked it up.
yeah.
I ate my giant ass sandwich over my slabs, and people were like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" I'm like eating this giant sandwich. So I agree. You gotta fuel yourself. I would actually say like related to that, and this is more so on the physical end. Vending does take a lot out of you, just like
Yeah,
physically.
does.
So what you do before sleeping, eating, stretching, exercise, all that helps a lot. Are you going well hydrated? Are you going well fed from the night before or that week? Like it'll help you. This might totally just destroy what you're gonna say and yours.
Maybe that's all right.
Just sell cool shit. The reason why I wanted to vend is because I've looked around the space. A lot of the business guys who sell cards and have like content profiles like IGs and YouTubes. The thing that I was always envious of is like, dude, how are you getting these collections? Like, are you serious? Like some random person hit you up to buy their booster boxes from their grandpa's basement or whatever. I realized as I started to sell more on eBay and like TCU player, people don't reach out to you for that stuff. Maybe every now and then some idiots like, hey, can we take this deal off of eBay and go to Instagram? But
Oh yeah,
for the most part, people are not gonna proactively tell you like, hey, I have something to sell. I got these slabs of booster boxes. So for me, vending was an opportunity to like start that conversation and like get my name out there
yeah,
in a way where like I tell people I buy. I'm not even buying half the time. Oh yeah, I'm always buying. Sorry, that's like my secret. I'm not even buying half the time, but I will gladly buy if it's worth buying.
yeah,
So it really is about just being able to like create that, because otherwise, like, where are you going to get the opportunity to tell people, hey, I'm down to look at your collection? You don't want to post in Facebook groups because those are like just terrible cesspools at this point.
yeah.
It's
Everyone's
so
posting the
crowded.
same thing, like want to buy
Same
collection
thing.
70%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Facebook posts where someone has a screenshot of their bank account
Oh yeah,
and it's like
or like $100 bills
50,000,
all over the bed.
and you're like, kind of looks photoshopped, kind of doesn't.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, no, I agree. The whole like getting your name out there. After the first Comic-Con here locally that I vended, I was the only Pokemon person, but I had multiple people come up. We have Pokemon cards in the basement. Would you buy them from me and blah blah blah, and I'm taking down their information. Well, like 10 months after, I get a message from this old lady who has an autistic son that lives with them, and they collected cards together, and it was that $10,000 collection that I bought and made like an insane amount of money off from that show.
never, yeah,
It's like,
never judge. Just
yeah,
be arms wide open, and I think vending allows for that. Like,
yep.
you'll meet so many people from all types of backgrounds. I got a couple stories on that, and you'll never know who has what.
Especially, I mean, that can be another one we put on there, but don't be the guy who just like sits there and looks ornery the whole time and doesn't engage with the people that come up. If kids come up,
Yeah,
like in their opening packs, like get hype for them, try and be engaging and nice to everyone that comes up too. Cause like you said, you never know who's going to come up. And if you have a good first impression, I think first impressions are super important. If you have a good first impression compared to the 10 other people, sellers that are in the room there, they're going to want to sell their stuff to you. The second one that I have is one that you briefly mentioned, but introduce yourself to your fellow vendors, everyone that's like next to you and stuff. Try to be, cordial. You might be selling the same stuff. It might be a little contentious or whatever, but for the most part, I've never had a bad experience talking to the other people that are there. Everyone's there slinging cards, doing the same thing. If you get comfy with them, just be like, I might go to the restroom a few times. Do you mind looking after my stuff? Especially if you're there alone. Obviously, I would recommend if you can go with somebody, that would be really a fun experience to do it with someone else. But if you're
Yeah.
alone, like everyone's more than welcome to help other people out.
Us vendors stick together, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's a very normal thing just to like, hey, watch my stuff. I'm lucky to vend. This guy man on Instagram, his name's Jake. I've been vending with him a few times, so we just kind of look after each other. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Make friends, get to know them. Yeah, it's usually not a problem.
Well, because even so, like a lot of the vendors are probably vending all the different shows in the area. So if you're going to start
Yeah.
vending like a bunch of different shows in a 20-mile radius, 50-mile radius, you're going to see a lot of these people at all these different shows too. Number 3 I have is be willing to negotiate. Buyers want to feel like they're winning. Price your things not too high, but price it well enough that you're like, okay, if I sold this on eBay, it'd be what, 15-20%. So if I take 10%, still coming out a little bit ahead, and they're feeling like they're winning. So I'm gonna come down a little bit. Like I had some cars that were like $270 slabs, and the guy was like him and Han. He's like, oh, could you do any better on this? And I was like, would you do 260? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll do 260. It's like $10 off. Of course I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that all day, every day. But he did it because he felt like he got a deal and he negotiated. So it's like, just think about that when people are like, even if you're not offering a massive percentage off, they might still take it because they at least feel like they're getting some sort of a deal.
I have like two things related to that. It is okay to say no, and if you do, say it with confidence. I think when you say no and you mean it, they're like, "Oh crap, did I just mess this up?" They're like, "Oh man, this vendor's not going to sell it to me." Like they're pretty firm. That means they're probably pretty confident and like it's a fair price. The other is bundle as much as you can. In my vending video, I sold to this guy that's a TikTok streamer. He had like no intention of buying 2 of the slabs, but I basically said like, "Hey, if you buy these 2, I'll give you $20 off on each of them." And they end up buying all 5 of the slabs for like $1,000. So I
Yeah.
got like $1,000 sale off of a sale that should have been like $600 because I bundled 2 cards that he passed over earlier. It's only like 15% off, I think. Just spent more money than you probably weren't going to because decided to give you more stuff.
The other one I have is price cards reasonably. I think you already mentioned this. If you know prices and you're walking by a booth and it's like, that card's $200 and they have it for 300, you're like, I'm not even going to go to that booth. I see one price that is like 50% higher than it should be, and I'm like, nope, I'm passing on that. There's not going back.
There's a vendor that is known. The shows that I vended at and just go to visit, everything they price is like 20-30% over market, and they never negotiate. And I always wonder, like, man, how are these guys, how are they making a living? Because they're asking like $130 for like $110 card, and they won't budge on it. I like Japanese because the obscurity of like pricing, it is not exactly clear what the market price is for a lot of older Japanese stuff. Like my mid-area Japanese stuff, the prices on eBay for half the stuff is like all over the place.
Yeah.
I can say, they'll ask like, how did you price this? I'm like, well, I looked at TCG player, which I do. And TCG players, when you go to heavy played, moderate played, like we played for mid-era stuff, it's also kind of all over the place. But
Yeah.
at least I can say I use some type of fair methodology based on what's happening in English to price this card. And so I'm not like pulling numbers out of my butt. I have some reasoning, and that allows me to ask like, I want $45 for this Delta Species card that you haven't seen and it's slightly played. And they'll go look it up and they'll see like recent solds at like 20, 30, 50, 60. And I'll say, well, you can't buy that now. Like that's a recent sold. It's not available anymore. So
Yeah.
I think my price of $45 is fair. It works most of the time because they know they can't just walk away and say, "Oh, you're overpriced. I want to buy this elsewhere." Like, where are you gonna buy it, buddy?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where are you gonna buy this card that you can't find elsewhere?
I always price especially slabs. I price everything basically like low list on eBay because that's what I would price it on eBay. Is low list on eBay.
Yeah.
And then whenever someone comes up, because like you said, mid era is like you got Z&G auctioning freaking mid era PSA 10s at like 50% of the price to buy it now. Thanks, James. Whenever someone asks like, "Hey, how did you price these?" I'm just like, low list on eBay. Like you're not gonna find it lower on eBay because I know at some point someone's gonna come up and be like, "Well, it sold at auction for $80 and you have it for 120," and I'm just gonna have to say like I don't comp off auctions, like because it's just a completely different way of selling something that's gonna garner a completely different price than a buy it now.
So I don't know how controversial this is, but I have my own stance on it based off of my last show. There's a guy there that was a fellow vendor. He got into this long conversation with me about my car, like my more expensive cards. And then he started using PWCC comps.
Yeah.
PWCC comps are like most of the time not equivalent to eBay comps. They're
No,
lower.
I mean the buyer pool is way smaller.
And the buyer pool smaller, and like he was sitting like arguing with me. This card that you're asking 2 grand for is worth $800. I'm like, I'm not taking anywhere near $800
Yeah.
because some moron sold on PWCC last summer, because they wanted to liquidate. That's the one for me. I think it depends on the card, but when people lean very heavily into like one data point that exists and they use it conveniently for the price that they want to propose, I just like die inside. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I cannot do business
Yeah.
with you.
It's not
I'm
going to
sorry.
happen. Last thing I got is think about the type of event that you're at and plan accordingly to the event. Because I've done a few different shows. I've done Collecticon, which is like a big collector event, which
Yeah.
you can bring more expensive things and do better. I've been to local family Comic Cons that have,
Mhm.
30 vendors and maybe 1,000 people walk through during the day, or 500 people walk through during the day. That's going to be more packs and low cost singles for kids that are walking by, and you're probably going to have less sales overall. That's just the event that you're at. So figure out the type of event you're at and then plan your inventory accordingly to what you think is going to walk in the door.
I totally agree with that. What's tough for me is I don't think I want to have the opportunity to try a bunch of different events. And so I have to kind of either be a buyer, go to other events in the area just to understand like what people sell, what people buy, ask vendors.
Mm.
And I have to guess a bit and I have to decide. But yeah, some of it's guesswork and some of it is, I would say too, like bring more than you think you need, but don't expect to sell it all depending on the space that you have.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
variety, binders, bulk bins, slabs, sealed if that's your thing. I haven't had success selling sealed in this area.
I didn't
People
have
just kind
any
of stare at it and like,
success
what is
either.
this Japanese stuff? Yeah. Don't lean too hard into one thing unless you're confident it's what people want.
No, absolutely agree. I mean, the shop does decent with the Japanese boxes, or has at least in the last like month. But at the show that I brought it, it was like the only people that wanted it are people that wanted to buy at like 60% to rip on whatnot streamers or whatever. And it was like
Yeah.
Shiny Treasure EX. They wanted to buy at like a cheaper price so that they could rip it on their their whatnot or their TikTok account, which I understand, but it's like, it's not going to happen. Sorry. If you guys enjoyed this style of video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below. Make sure to also subscribe to @EarnCollects on YouTube. It was a great conversation we had together about a multitude of different topics, and there will be a couple more videos from that conversation coming out here soon. But if you want to see the full unedited chat that we had, you can become a member today for just $1.99 a month.